Rain showers across the area, 42 at O'Hare, 41 in Aurora. Your next news update is at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Yeah, that man featured in that theme music for our friend Ted Dabrowski from Wirepoints. Yeah. He's on trial right now. Oh. How about that?
For what?
Anybody? For what?
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. I'm Mike Madigan. Yeah.
Not that anybody particularly cares. I saw that those former CPS honor students, fresh off the looting of that rail car, made their way up to Lincoln Park to deface the Abraham Lincoln the Man statue at North and Dearborn. That was expected. The droogs that lord over Chicago, the righteous as they are. Mm-hmm.
And some young pro-Palestinians also wanted to make sure nobody forgot them on Columbus or Indigenous Peoples Day yesterday.
It's the same people, though. People understand that. That episode ripped from Johannesburg of the 50 to 150 people that looted the rail car for home appliances, and the people who defaced the statue. I mean, not actually necessarily the same individuals, but it's the same people, the same profile. It's all an illustration of the lawlessness that has become the culture in Chicago, in Chicagoland, really. They
do it because they can, because they know they're not going to get caught, and even if they do, they'll get a slap on the wrist.
Yes, it's the line from Speak No Evil. By the way, pretty good remake of Speak No Evil, the Danish film I've mentioned before. That's out now, starring James McAvoy. It's not as good as the Danish film from just a few years earlier. The ending is too Hollywood. The ending of the Danish film was better social commentary. But it's worth seeing. McAvoy's good. The line from Speak No Evil about this terrible couple that inflicts terror on another couple and their kid. Why are you doing this to us? The answer? Because you let us. Ooh. Why are things happening? Why are these things happening in Chicago? The answer? Because we let them. Speaking of honor students at CPS, Red Diaper David has weighed in on the Chicago Public School Board elections. This is rich, really rich. He tweeted, did Axelrod, in Chicago, the city's powerful teachers union is spending heavily to win control of a new elected school board. Who could have seen that coming? And deceptively painting opponents as tools of Trump and the apostles of Project 2025. And he's got a couple of mail pieces that he screenshotted to accompany his tweet. Oh, heavens. David Axelrod complaining about political deception. I mean, does it get better than that? David Axelrod donning the cloak of the reformer. I mean, it's just delicious. Thank you, David Axelrod, the moral conscience of Chicago, even though he lives on a news desk at CNN now. He used to live in the same building as me, actually, Lake Point Tower.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever converse or run into each other in the elevator?
We were on a panel together once, and it didn't go well for him. David Axelrod complaining about deceptive campaign propaganda. I mean, it is like P. Diddy complaining about ungentlemanly behavior. It's just remarkable. For more on all that is going on, pleased to be joined by our friend Ted Dabrowski, president of wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy.
How about those school board elections? Big changes coming to CPS. It must be because all the money that's being spent on these school board elections. It must mean that change is in the air, and finally there's going to be some sort of comeuppance to Stacey Davis Gates and Brandon Johnson. And we're going to take those schools back, and we're going to make sure that kids get a quality education in CPS, right?
Yeah, it's hard to see how changing the board will make a big difference. Obviously, if you had like this group that was, if you could get, there's going to be 10 new members, right? There's going to be 11 appointed by Johnson, and then 10 new members who are voted in by the public. But, you'd have to be very, very strong and vocal to take on the unions, take on the whole system, and avoid incrementalism. But, typically what we're going to get from this, at best, is some incrementalist moves. But it's going to be hard to take on the unions right now, especially with what's going on.
So I think it's more likely than not, you would say, that just as we anticipated when there was this big fight over whether or not to have an elected school board or a appointed school board or some hybrid. Oh, this is the fight of our time. Well, it'll just be nobody pay attention. The teachers union will come with the money to back their candidates, and it'll just be what it is right now, which is a tool of the teachers union.
Well, it's a tool of the teachers union, but I keep saying too, it's you got all these mandates that come from the state. So it's really hard to do changes at the local school district when all the mandates come from Springfield. And let's not forget that Springfield, it gives all the powers to the union. So it's the same club, right? It's the lawmakers who say, yeah, you guys can strike. Yeah, you guys can have long-term contracts. Yeah, you union guys can negotiate 5 years worth of pay. And when you give the unions that much power, and then say, and if you don't like it, you can strike. Well, guess what the union's going to do? So,
do you think they'd really go on strike?
Oh, heck yeah! Why not? I mean, if you look at the history of strikes, there's a period there where they've been striking. But if you go back to the 70s, they've been striking all the time. And incrementally, they always get what they want, and it's why we are where we are at peak power right now with the CTU in power and, of course, the mayor in power. So. They could strike. Why not?
We talked to Trump's press secretary yesterday, Caroline Leavitt, in advance of his speech before the Economic Club of Chicago today. I suggested that he re-raise the issue of school choice. This would be an opportune time and an appropriate venue to do so. What do you hope Trump has to say? Because, he always tailors something specific to the place he is, like he did in Detroit with talking about making interest on car loans tax deductible, so forth. What would you like him to address that is Chicago or Illinois centric?
Well, I heard your idea, right, of whatever contributions tax for school choice and all that tax deductible, some of which we've had. I made my other suggestion was to make gun purchases. Oh, gun
tax
purchases.
deductible.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I'm sorry. I'd forgotten. Yeah, that was pretty good. And that would be an interesting one, right? Because that would get under everybody's nails, let's call it. We just put out a piece this morning about 5 things that it'd be nice to discuss, and if the Chicago Economic Group and Bloomberg would actually talk about the real things, because he's talked very strongly about the crime. He's talked a little bit about education. But yeah, I would love for him to bring the school choice thing into view. He's talked very strongly about crime, with the murder capital coming 13 years in a row right now, so he might hit that. But it's school choice that I think is kind of foundational for getting things better off. And the more that parents can hear what the hell school choice is, I argue that many don't even know that it exists. The more they can hear that, the more they might say, "Hey, what is that? And what is he talking about?" So let's
it sparks a discussion, right? You'll have a hue and cry from the people we were just mentioning, and throw Pritzker in as well. But it sparks a discussion, and since Pritzker's tried to play Pontius Pilate on the issue, it's a nice threefer for Trump to raise the issue, because he gets to go after Pritzker, he gets to go after Brandon Johnson, he gets to go after Stacey Davis Gates and the entire power structure.
Yeah, and he's got plenty of data to back him up. I mean, it's the murder data is all out there. He knows it, and he can hit it. But the education data is out there too. If he could get to them, 80% of minority kids graduate, and yet it's only about 15% that read a grade level on the SAT. So that's the kind of stuff that's the lies that the system perpetuates and just moves those kids through. And so he's got a chance at making school choice. He really does have a chance to make school choice the issue or one of the issues nationally, because it's it's being embraced in half the country but not being embraced in the other half.
All right, so Stacey Johnson, our first lady, don't you know, she's been quiet for the past 17 months now. All of a sudden she's getting her office redone at the tune of $80,000 when we're trying to tighten up the purse strings.
Oh, right.
Well, is she trying to salvage his mayoralship at this point in time? Like,
well,
why
getting her
is she
office
entering
redone?
No. Why entering the scene now? Now she's going to be a public figure. Now she's going to, essentially have some platform.
You know who she should hire to redo that office?
Who?
Aaron Schock. You can make it up like Downton Abbey or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Right. A nice
No,
office.
but I'm just asking you, do you think that she's
bipartisan.
entering the scene to try and, make him look like the softer side of Brandon Johnson?
Yeah, I don't know because I haven't really followed her, so I can't comment on it.
We don't know her.
but,
We've never heard her voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I
mean,
haven't. I mean, I don't know what her purpose. It's just strange that she's popping onto the scene now.
Causes they like to go after, but I don't know what she's doing. But he certainly could use some help.
Yeah.
But of course, spending $80,000 on an office isn't the best start.
No.
Well, she was working at that diner on What's Happening,
What?
and
Oh,
she probably
damn it.
just got right. Wasn't she? Wasn't that her?
Damn.
She was the waitress on What's Happening, wasn't she? I think so. Anyway, hey, speaking of education, this is fun. Did Kamala Harris, is she a state legislator as well in Illinois? I mean, Illinois legislation give colleges taxpayer dollars for each minority student enrolled. So we're gonna. This is fascinating in a sense because, of course, it's identitarian politics on one hand, but on the other hand, I mean, it gives the school, not the actual student directly, which is real choice. But the idea of attaching, I mean, philosophically, this is attaching money to the kid, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's got to bump into constitutional issues. Obviously, they'll, like you said, they'll try to separate it. It's not the kid getting it, but the school. But we just have to stop. Everything has become so racialized that we no longer talk about merit anymore. And we just keep bastardizing our systems, no matter what they are. And this is just the next one.
Well, right. I mean, this is obviously this is discriminatory and based on race, which is violative of our Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. But I mean, these are workarounds when you talk about legislators in Illinois. The latest and greatest. We had this. Contretemps between Tony Preckwinkle and Iris Martinez, clerk of the circuit court, and Tim Evans, chief judge for that matter, over the impact of no cash bail, the impact of Pritzker's purge law. What's your latest and greatest handle on those exchanges and the underlying data that Iris Martinez offered that suggests that the number of people not showing up for their mandated court appearances because they've been accused of committing crimes is much greater than has otherwise been advertised up until she presented that data?
Yeah, I wish I could get my hand on that data, and we're going to work on that. We haven't worked on it yet, but it's nice to see somebody in the system take on the system, and she's saying the exact opposite of what the system is saying, that everybody's coming back to court on time and all that, and she's saying the opposite. The overwhelming majority aren't coming back on time for their court appearances. So it's good to hear, but I don't have any inside knowledge yet, and nor do I have the data. She's presented what she's presented, and she seems to stand by it. But the system doesn't like somebody speaking out of turn like that, and it's kind of refreshing for us to see somebody push back a little bit. Let's hope she's got her data right too, though.
Hey, we're 3 weeks before an election, and we focus on the presidency, maybe some Senate races, so on and so forth. But there's technically at the school board, I guess here, technically there's an election for like 118 state legislators and a third of the state Senate. And I mean, do you see any evidence that there are competitive races going on for things like state legislative seats, congressional seats?
It's really hard to feel any of that, right? I feel a little bit of what's going on with Fioretti versus, in the attorney general, not the district attorney race, state's attorney race. But when you talk about legislators, you can't feel anything. I mean, I've heard talk that Republicans may lose more seats, and I've heard talk that Republicans may pick up a few. But I can tell you from where I sit, and I don't look at the politics all day. But if there was any move either way, I don't feel it. So it just kind of feels like status quo, like nothing's going on, which I think says a lot about where things stand for change and reform. It has to be dramatically different. If we wanted to think we're going to feel change in Illinois, you would feel it. You would feel. Here's an interesting thing. If you were looking to change Illinois, or if you were going to run a campaign, you would love to run a campaign against somebody who's corrupt, has the worst economic record, kids can't read, crime is murders are 13-year high. You would want to run against that candidate because that candidate would be very weak and can't defend him or herself from the record. And that's precisely what we have in terms of, I guess, Republicans versus Democrats, and yet they're not able to make Democrats wear a lot of those problems. So it's really interesting that despite the horrible record of the Democrats, they've run Chicago for over 100 years. Democrats have run the governorship 17 out of the last 21. You would think that the Republicans, or let's call them the reformers, would have much more power in their messaging and success, but don't see it yet.
Ted Dabrowski, President Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I don't need to tell you how important a good night's sleep is, but like most people, sometimes you can't fall asleep or you wake up during the night. That's why I want to tell you about Z-Factor. Z-Factor is a 100% drug-free way to help you fall asleep faster, sleep longer, and sleep better. Z-Factor is from the makers of Relief Factor. Now, Z-Factor uses a formula of 4 all-natural ingredients to calm your mind and relax your body so you ease into sleep faster and sleep through the night. Just ask Maureen G. She said, quote, "This product broke a 15-year nightly cycle of lying in bed for hours